IMF and World Bank are economic enslavers. What they are designed to do is to ensure that we are in a perpetual state of debt. You can never get out of IMF and Bretton Woods institutions generally because they want to ensure that they control your economy, and when they control your economy, they control your politics. That as long as we are dependent on IMF and World Bank, our economies are simply going to be shadow economies of the American economy.
Hey, this is Janetta coming back at you hard, hard, hard. Yeah, you know what? Oh, let me say this. Have you ever tried to put something out that just seemed like it just wouldn't leave no matter what you did? Have you ever tried to cut a relationship off that wasn't good for you, but that person kept coming back into your life and you just had to cut them off? Well, Kenya is experiencing that. In fact, other countries in Africa are experiencing that. IMF. Kenya is saying, I don't want the IMF anymore. I want you to listen to what they're saying about the IMF. IMF is a predatory lender. Yeah. So listen about the IMF and the ambassador to Kenya from the United States. Let's listen. Okay.
Well, the situation in Kenya with the protests. Well, first of all, we'll say that the president of Kenya has long been regarded as a Western client, if not a puppet. And that's not without reason. He has regularly ingratiated himself with the West. He has been pursuing neoliberal economic policies within Kenya that have made the lives of the people increasingly miserable. And so this has resulted, predictably, in protests that began peacefully and turned violent because of the police. The police shot at peaceful protesters. Now, they're calling for the removal of the president of Kenya, William Ruto. Now, what I would say about that situation is that it's similar to the situation before it in Sudan, and it's similar to the situation before Sudan in Egypt, where the people are protesting against the government for policies that the government is implementing, which the government is held hostage to implement in favor of multinational corporations and international lenders. Chief among them, the International Monetary Fund. In fact, the bill that stirred the protests in Kenya initially is basically an IMF bill, a structural adjustment reform, an austerity measure that is being demanded by the IMF of the Ruto government. So my opinion, as was my opinion with regards to Sudan, when Omar Bashir was being blamed for the economic policies that were the austerity measures, the austerity economic policies, the neoliberal policies that he was implementing under coercion in Sudan, and the protests against Sisi because of the neoliberal policies that he was implementing under coercion. My position has always been that these leaders, these politicians, exist to take the blame for the policies that they're implementing on behalf of private sector power. That's why they exist. That's why I call them effigies, because they exist to implement the policies that will make them unpopular, and then they'll take the brunt of the unpopularity. They'll take the brunt of public anger, and then they'll be removed, but the policies will remain. because the source of the policies is the private sector, is the international private sector. It's the OCGFC. It's the Western multinational corporations and lenders, financial institutions, and so forth. Again, specifically, the International Monetary Fund. This is your problem. And now, who is the International Monetary Fund doing what it's doing? Who is it doing it for? It's not doing it for Kenya, we all know that. And it wasn't doing it for Sudan, and it's not doing it for Egypt. So who are they doing it for? And when you identify who they're doing it for, then those are the private sector players, those are the power brokers that it makes more sense to me that the population should be protesting and should be directing their activism and their opposition towards those actors on the political and economic scene in Kenya, not the government. Now, I'm not speaking up in favor of William Ruto. There's a lot of problems with his government, certainly, without question. Just as there were problems with the government of Omar Bashir, and there's certainly a multitude of problems with the government of Abdul Fattah al-Sisi. But when you're talking about specifically the way that they're managing the economy, you have to understand that they are not the managers of the economy. Their lenders are the managers of the economy, and the lenders are managing the economy in such a way as to benefit Western multinational corporations. So, for example, in Kenya, you should look at Coca-Cola. You should look at General Electric. You should look at Standard Chartered. You should look at Barclays Bank. Look at Safaricom, Nestle, IBM, and look at Toyota. These are the beneficiaries of the economic policies. These are the beneficiaries of neoliberalism. They're the ones who are holding the government hostage. And they're doing it by means of the IMF. So your president, and again, whether it's Kenya or whether it's Sudan or whether it's Egypt or whether it's Pakistan and many other places around the world, and increasingly you can say the same thing about countries in Europe, these governments, these politicians are hostages, and the policies that they're implementing are essentially like when you see a hostage being forced to read a list of demands. You don't get angry at the hostage for the demands that he's making on behalf of the hostage taker. And that's what the government does. That's what your president does. That's what your prime minister is doing. They're just reading the list of demands that they have been told that they that must be met in order for them to not be eliminated. And the one that's going to be eliminated here isn't the president, it's your whole economy. Because the IMF has considerable power to sabotage and cripple your economy if you don't do what they say. That's why it's better for you if you never get involved with them in the first place. And this is why I've said time and time again that it's much better for Muslim countries, for countries in the global south, for countries in Africa, to do business with China, to do business with Russia, while they still can, while those countries are still interested in investing in Africa, in the global south, Latin America, and the Muslim world, and so on, while they still have the money to spend, you ought to take the money from them rather than taking the money from the IMF. Because the IMF and Western lenders generally are not actually interested in you paying them back. They don't want you to pay them back. Because when they loan you money, they're calling it a loan, and you think it's a loan, but what they're actually doing is buying you. So they don't want the money back. They want what they bought, which is your whole country.
Listen to what Bubba says. And, the one thing about it, I don't think that's his real name. I know it's not, but it's more than likely here in Africa, they say Bubba or Babo or things like that, and they're talking about a man, grown man, either dad or brother. So listen to what Bubba has to say about this whole situation. Yeah, okay, just listen very closely.
Now finally, you want to tell a rogue ambassador, leave Kenyans alone. If Mandamano can lead to a dialogue between Ichungwa and Kalonzo, everything is good with Mandamano. Tell the rogue ambassador, Kenya is not United States. Kenya is not a colony of the United States. keep your mouth shut when you hear. Otherwise, you'll recall for your recall back to your country. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Go.
What the brother was telling them is, and telling the ambassador, you have no part in the business of Kenya. We don't want the IMF. We don't want you telling us we have to have the IMF. You take all your ideas and what you're thinking that we should do, go home and keep your mouth shut. And you know, one of the things that when he's talking to her, or when we're talking to her, we're talking to the United States because she's a representative of the United States government. Just being involved in everybody else's business, when we have so much that we can be taking care of ourselves within the United States. But Africa is tired, and you're going to see more and more of this. So you better stay in tune, because it's going to affect your life and it's affecting my life. Don't be afraid to come over and join in. Don't be afraid to come over and make a new life in Africa. But we're going through a transition. Africa, I say we because I feel like this is where I belong. This is where I belong. This is my continent. But there's a shaking and a rumbling, like Muhammad Ali used to say. We no longer are playing rope-a-dope with our opponents anymore. We're winners, and we are going to win. So hey, if you like me, let me know. If you like the video, you like my presentation, you like what I'm bringing to you, you like the interesting facts that are being put before you so you'll become aware, let me know. Just hit that like button. Share this video. Also, tell me what you like. Comment. And most of all, subscribe to my channel. I want you to stay abreast of what's going on, because, hey, it's not going to stop. It's going to grow. And the noise is going to get louder and louder. So, hey, keep your eyes open, your ears alert, and your mouth shut. Not really. Open your mouth. All right. Love you. Woo-hoo. Talk to you later. Hey, this is Jamila, and you're watching Africa Speak.